With the music.
Yeah. Hey.
Break it down.
Oh,
Break it down.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
Oh.
Hey. Hey.
Yeah.
Wow, it sounds great.
I know, right? Pretty cool.
Whoa.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Six Pack Lab. It is episode number 5 here of the Six Pack Lab. I'm your host, Jonny Catanzano. Today we have a very special guest, Miss Ella. Thank you for coming in. Ella Kociuba. Am I saying it right?
Oh, I knew that's why you wanted to hesitate about my name. So it's actually interesting. It's actually Kociuba.
Kociuba. Man, I was
I was way off.
But I know. But we actually pass it off as we actually pass it off as Kociuba.
Kociuba.
Yeah, Kociuba.
Okay, I got it that time.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty not even
So you were
close.
close, yeah.
Close is only good in horseshoes and hand grenades, my dad would say. All right, and so in today's episode of number 5, we're going to go always first start things off with the latest in health news. We're going to cover an interesting article that we found that we thought we would share with everybody. Then we're going to move on to if Jim fails to fixes. Then we're going to do a throwback Thursday because we like to release these on Thursdays. And we're going to show you guys a great transformation of before and after. That's why we're calling it Throwback Thursday. We're going to throw back to the old pictures. And then, of course, we're going to move on to the meat and potatoes with our interview with Miss Ella. So let's get started here. Latest in health news. Ray on the ones and twos. Thanks for being here again today, brother.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Love, bro. Love,
Yeah.
bro.
All love.
This was a great article that I personally came across, and I've gotten this question quite a few times. And is keto safe for kids? And you actually, this realistically could be applied to any diet. It's like, if we were 15 years ago, is the Atkins diet safe for kids? If it was 10 years ago, is the paleo diet safe for kids? If it was now, it's the keto, or if it is the fasting diet safe for kids? So that's the reason I thought this was a great article, because there's a lot of specific information there's a lot of differences between a child and an adult. Child being in the developmental years, correct?
Yeah.
Still growing, still developing muscle, bone, memory, brain function, that sort of thing. So the article was actually, now here's the funny thing. The article I found was from the Huffington Post.
Oh, God.
So, of course, you're like, Jonny, that's probably a fake article. It's like, guys, come on. I know I was born at night, but I was not born last night. I know that they tend to have very questionable articles. But I read the article, looked into it, and it was actually a writer. So Ray, like always, is going to go ahead and throw the article into the description here so you guys can check it out for yourselves. And don't be mad at the messenger for the content, okay? Guys, I'm just relaying the information. So, Ray, can you go to the top just so we can get the author's name? Abigail Abisamis. And she, I guess, is a staff writer for the Huffington Post. And she consulted with registered dietitians, a PhD, and a pediatrician. Okay, so credentialed medical professionals, essentially. Okay, so these people have put their lives' work into getting the education needed to advise people on topics like this. So this isn't just nonsense. Okay, so the main questions that they wanted to cover in the article is it safe to put kids on keto? Is it a good idea for parents to put their kids on the same restrictive diet they're following? And then number 3, what's the best way for parents to talk to their kids about their restricted diet? And here's what they learned. So, and I'm just going to kind of go through the big bullet points here. And you guys at home, I urge you to pull this up. Maybe if you've been thinking this, or maybe if you're a young person interested in keto, or maybe if you're a parent and you have kids that are maybe a little bit overweight and you've been curious on the topic. Now, as always, let's preface this with consult with your doctor prior to doing anything. We aren't doctors here, but the article here first states off that keto doesn't provide the macronutrients children need for a healthy diet. Second thing, the keto diet can lead to nutritional deficiencies and other health issues. So I think one of the registered dietitians named Kirkpatrick, I think it references her name in there, noted that severely restricting kids' carbohydrate intake to 20 to 50 grams a day compared to what's recommended is about 130 grams per day, restricts the intake of foods that provide fuel for energy and cognitive function, as well as foods that are rich in vitamins and minerals required for growth and development. Rapid growth, bone deposition, hormonal changes, metabolic rate, and a host of other differences make kids react very differently to nutrition than adults. So, clearly, guys, I mean...
Just don't put a kid on this type of restrictive diet. Kids shouldn't be on diets like that when they're young. They
exactly.
should just be eating.
They should be eating.
Growing.
They need a wide variety of the healthy fruits, vegetables, whole grains. That includes protein, fat, and carbohydrates.
Yes.
Next thing they mention is unless medically prescribed, it is probably not a good idea to put your kid on a restricted diet because they do for seizures. But here's the interesting thing. They said that the actual medical guidelines for the keto diet for kids with that condition isn't the same as the keto diet you see the majority of the population doing, meaning that the majority of the population typically restricts their carbohydrates to less than 5%. And with that the diet that's actually prescribed is somewhere in the range of about 15% carbohydrates. And it's not it's not 70 or 80% fat. It's only about 35 or 45% fat. So, and that still induces ketosis, especially in children. So, and that's only for medically prescribed kids. Now, when talking to kids about a restricted diet, it's important for parents to be aware that children observe and are influenced by their parents' relationship with food, including the negative language that is sometimes used around certain foods, one of the dietitians said. The tone of these conversations may affect how children view that food. There's a fine line between labeling a food as good or bad and subsequently labeling yourself for eating or not eating that food. What that means is if you're a parent and you have a kid and they overhear you constantly saying, carbs make you fat, I can't have carbs, you're not supposed to be eating carbs, blah, 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 that'll be engraved in their brain.
Oh, absolutely. I can definitely agree to that.
See
just
that.
From personal experiences. Yeah.
Interesting.
Just like hearing the same thing of like, oh, I shouldn't be eating this, but they eat it anyways.
Uh-huh.
And so you kind of like just attach yourself to feeling that same guilt because it's seen as a shameful thing.
Mm-hmm. And then that doesn't necessarily fix the problem for the kid because then it just brings on a whole onslaught of other issues because like you said,
they're reflections of are their elders, right? So they're just going to follow you. They're sponges at that point.
Big sponges. So definitely check out the article. I found it was very interesting. The big theme of it, my thoughts are on it that and I totally agree with Ella, you should never have a child on something that restrictive. If you have a child that's overweight and obese, you need to first just talk with your doctor, talk with your pediatrician on different methods and different things that you can do because there's a million ways to go about getting healthier at all ages, including children. They need to first understand their relationship with food, and I think they also need to first understand the values in food, the calorie densities of food, the differences and all the basics, and go from there. From there, you can devise with a nutritionist or with a dietitian or with your pediatrician, you can devise a plan to make sure that the energy expenditure goes up and the calorie intake is controlled.
Absolutely, yeah.
And controlled with the right foods. That's what I think. Would you tend to agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, you said it perfect. I don't need to say anything else. Like,
hit the nail on the head. Where's the
Oh, 3. Oh no.
there we go.
We're still working out the kinks on the numbers. We're still getting it there.
Yeah. This time it's cool.
All right, Ray. Go ahead and pull up the first gym fail to fixes we got for today. We're gonna move on here, and like I said, go ahead and check out that article. It will be linked in the description. So this is one of my favorite times here. I love gym fails to fixes.
Yeah, it's the best.
Oh.
So Ella, real quick before you start, Ray. Ella, can you explain to the audience what this thing is?
Yeah, what is going on? I have no idea. Not a clue.
So this is a lovely thing that is in the Tough Mudder, and you basically try to run straight through without getting shocked, but that's nearly impossible because all those little strings you see right there, little electric cords,
Okay, so all those little strings hanging down. It looks like there's probably about maybe 500 to.
It's a party in there.
They're all live.
Oops, yeah, like they're shooting.
How bad is that shot?
Yeah, so on a scale 1 to 10, how bad does it hurt?
It's kind of up there, but it's not that bad. I mean, it's made some people not be knocked out, but I've only felt it once. Yeah.
Not that bad. You just might pass out.
You just might get knocked out.
You're asking the wrong person.
Okay. Yeah, right. You're like immune to it. She just walks through it like Jesus.
Hello, I'm here.
The electric cords part as she
you
goes.
know what that is? You know what that is? It's basically like my hippie beads. I just go through like, oh.
It's nothing.
It's your tapestry.
great,
It's your tapestry and your doorway beads. I
Yes.
love it. Okay.
Oh,
So these are live things. All right, Ray. So we're gonna. So these are jammed with voltage. This is incredible. All right.
So basically
Ray,
a
go
bunch
I
of
ahead,
already
electric
know
eels.
this is gonna be so.
go ahead
bad.
and play it. So.
All right, let's play that.
Yeah. Oh, the music.
song?
Oh, the music.
Yeah, I found this on YouTube. Okay, so we need to focus in here on this lady
And the,
on the ground. The
red?
lady on the ground in the red. She is apparently trapped in this. And the video is, I want to say, well over a minute long. So you can see she's still on the ground there.
Oh.
Now, do you think, is she stuck in the mud, or is she just, it hurts? Or is she being like
She's not grounded.
incapacitated? She's not. So it looks like somebody's going back for her now.
Oh.
Okay. All right. And we're getting her out. Okay. So we got her out. Ella, what could she have done differently?
I mean, I guess kept the momentum going.
Ray, go back.
Because if you notice this girl in the red tank top, she kept moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
And
go
she
back.
She
made it
made
through.
sure not to get down on her legs.
Yeah,
which-
go back a little bit. You
we-
can
Little
see
bit
when she
further.
gets the bad shocks. A little further.
But yeah,
Maybe towards the
she-
beginning. Oh,
Oh, there we go. Falls.
yeah,
Oh,
that
oh,
took her down,
oh.
and she was like, "Oh, my heart!"
Oh.
She could pulse. It's like a little exorcism, but it's
Oh.
okay. You kind of go through
It's a
that.
miniature exorcism.
You do that, and you just have to work through them. You
What if-
know,
I feel like, what if you have to go to the bathroom and you hit that thing?
I think it'll
Well, it's
help
all
you.
coming out.
You'll feel the tapestry.
You may not-
beads
you may
go
not have a
for you
choice.
on that
I may
one.
not have a
You
choice on
get
that
across,
one.
be like, I'm cresting right now. I need to go.
Oh, my God.
Oh, moving on. All right, Ray, now pull up the second one. We got two.
For
I
sure,
thought
for
the next one's real quick. Got to pay attention, but I also thought it was equally, if not more funny. This guy he's going in.
Oh, no.
So he's going in with, this guy's going in with a little bit different tactic. We'll
All
see
right, let's
here.
check it out.
Nice.
Don't stop!
Covers the face.
Don't stop! Yeah!
Oh! He
I really love his determination. He did not stop.
He did not
though.
stop, but
That
he
looked like
he,
that looks like me in a male form.
Oh,
Yeah.
I bet that
straight
hurt
into the bowl.
pretty bad. Ella, what do you think about the covering the hands approach? Do you
It
think
was great. I think he could have just kept it open, more like a great
Like a boxer? So you
Yeah.
can see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
it's
should
like-
have gone, Muhammad on it. Instead, he went, we don't even know. But
instead he went
he
Into
just
the
went to the pole. Yeah.
awesome. So that is our Gym Fails to Fix for the day. Thank you, Ella, for reaching out there, guys. And as always, it is lighthearted fun we're having here. We never mean to make fun of anybody, but
No.
we just wanted these guys.
A little bit of fun.
Look
but-
at that. Look how he finished that. That was amazing.
He crushed it. He crushed it. He actually
I know.
uprooted the pole out of the mud and then
got a
just kept going.
concussion
He got so done.
and still
Probably broke a
finished.
rib, maybe.
What are we doing? Yeah,
Sitting here doing nothing. All right, right now, why don't we go ahead and move on to our next segment? We do Throwback Thursday here
Yeah,
because we like to recognize our wonderful customers and the hard work that they really do put in, because we really do, and we feel selfish for it, but we get to see a lot of incredible transformations here at Six Pack. And we're going to go ahead and pull one up here out of one of our fantastic customers here out of Texas.
Whoop, whoop.
For sure, for sure. It's coming. It's coming. All right. Let's do that.
All right. So here's Steve. So Steve, 39 years old. Steve, 385 pounds. And I know Steve personally. Steve gave me absolute permission and gave me the stats and everything. So Steve's totally cool with this. I love you, big dog. Fantastic job, man. 385 pounds. And that was February 16th of 2018. He is at his lowest, got down to 225 pounds. And that only took, it looks like, just over 7 months. So that is a loss of 150 pounds in 7 months. Now, let's scroll down a little bit more and see the big guy in all his glory now. Let's a little scroll.
Wow.
There's Steve.
Wow.
Go Steve.
That's something.
Happy for you, big guy.
That's something.
Happy for you, big guy. Keep scrolling down. You'll see the side by side.
Looking slim.
Looking real slim. Look at the side by side of this guy.
Wow.
Incredible.
Oh, wow. When you sent me that, I didn't even realize that was the same person.
Absolutely incredible. It doesn't even look like the same. I mean, look at his.
I don't think people truly understand the mental capacity that he went through. You know, that's a true transformation.
100%.
And what you see in yourself.
Yes.
That's amazing.
I imagine
Yeah.
he probably learned quite a bit. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
about nutrition and health, but he probably learned a lot about himself.
Yeah.
And we were super happy for Steve. Steve actually is one of our customers, and he followed our science-based six-pack program, but he was also part of our Jumpstart coaching group, which we have a private Facebook group that is actually monitored by me and a few of our other platinum coaches. And when you purchase some of our programs, you can get access into it. And we basically, you know, we only have certified trainers and some nutrition. I'm a certified nutritionist, and we're in there. We're there to just help guide our customers when they purchase products or supplements from us, because there's a million fitness companies out there slinging products, but the majority of them, it's just a quick turnaround, a quick sale. You buy something, you're on your own doing it. If you have questions, if you need help, you usually can't reach out to anybody. Or, you know, for example, like Beachbody, all those, you know, they've got a lot of fantastic programs and trainers, but you can't reach out to Sean T if you need a little bit of help. You can't reach out to, you know, whoever they have. It's just very, very hard, and that's one thing that we really strive here is to
Be accessible.
Be accessible. You can talk to me if you want to. You can literally call the 1-800 number.
Yeah.
You can probably get through and end up talking to me if you want to. But that's beside the point. The point is here that we really like to interact with our customer base. And in the Jumpstart coaching group, that's what we do. And we get to see a lot of the members in there, just like Steve. He was following the program, but he posted his beginning pictures. And I remember when he posted his first pictures, because that's a big part of getting in the group. Is the first step we always recommend is posting your progress pictures, because that's one of the first steps for a lot of people into identifying what needs to be done. And it doesn't necessarily have to be shirtless. It's just you need to take a picture of yourself, because it's also good data to have to make sure you're progressing. And then just within a month or two, I see him post another set of pictures, and he's like a third of the size, and then, you know, a quarter of it's just, and so on and so forth. And all he would do is he would message me and one of our other coaches about once a week, once every other week, and just ask a few questions just to get clarity on certain things. And I just made sure he stayed in his lane, but he did the work. We're not taking the credit. He did the work. He did everything. We just helped guide him, and that's what we do at Six Pack. So great job, Steve.
That's amazing.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, for everybody else at home, we do want you to send in your transformation as well. Like I said, it's sometimes hard. It gets lost in translation sometimes. Us not knowing that you've lost all this weight, a lot of people might buy it and they're either private or they just keep the progress picture themselves or whatever the reason. We want you to send them in and for your chance to be featured here. Make sure and send the submissions to team@SixPackAbs.com. That's team@SixPackAbs.com for your chance to be featured here on our Throwback Thursday transformations. Great job, Steve. Love you, big guy.
Woo woo.
Woo!
Steve.
Now, let's move on to the meat and potatoes here.
Here it goes.
Here we go. Miss Ella.
Hi.
So excited to... Honestly, like, I remember you from a while ago. I remember seeing you on social media a long time ago. You know, I got into fitness a while. I mean, it's been 10 years or so. So I remember seeing you on, and I was super impressed.
Tell me about it. That's weird.
It is.
I don't even. Sometimes that girl that you're about to talk about, she seems dead because it's so long ago.
It was. I was so shocked and impressed at what you did or what you were doing.
Yeah.
I had this type of stuff. I'm a bodybuilder. I'm in the gym. I'm here to look pretty. Okay. That type of stuff, honestly, makes me. I was a little bit nervous just watching that. Made me a little nervous. So I saw you doing these incredible things, and then I saw that you were getting these sponsorships, and at that time I was trying to get into fitness, and I know you were kind of a different path of fitness, but it's all the same kind of. Yeah, so I was super impressed, and then I saw you were beating dudes, like smashing dudes, like setting records, just skyrocketing the fame, and I don't know, I was impressed. So it is weird. Life has a weird way of working out. I never in a million years thought you would be sitting here and I'd be interviewing you, but that's why I was been excited to interview you, because I know you have a story to tell, and that's what we're going to get to the bottom here. So first, let's talk a little bit about your background. How old are you?
I'm 26 years old.
Level 26, and you're originally from Texas here, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Liberty Hill when it was a small town. Now it's kind of growing into like an Austin suburbia.
And that's on northwest of Austin, 183.
Yeah, near Georgetown and Leander.
Okay, up that way. Nice. You married or single?
I'm single.
Okay, great. You have any brothers or sisters?
Yes. So I have 2 older brothers. My oldest brother, Tyler, is a Navy SEAL. And then my other brother,
Whoa.
Casey, is a Marine MARSOP. And then my sister is a 2nd grade teacher out in Lubbock.
Wow. That's
so,
awesome.
Yes, I love my family. I was really close with my brothers, especially my brother Casey growing up.
Mhm.
But and then of course my mom and dad. And we grew up, like with a good kind of group of land, and we had horses. I had a cow at one point. And like just really grew up country and wild. We were chasing pigs. I was outside.
Traditional Texan.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
Traditional wild Texas.
Ray's
woman.
from Miami. Ray doesn't know that shit.
I can tell. Hey, I can tell.
It's a little different over there.
He's from one of those hot Miami nights, man.
Yeah, it's a little different, man.
Well, that's great. So I'm sure you got a lot of your, let's say, grit maybe from growing up on the.
Yeah, like honestly, first off, I can't deny that there's something within my DNA family line that has some type of grit. Because if you look
with
at
a Marine and a Navy SEAL brother, maybe just a chance.
Right. So like there was already something there.
Thank you guys for your service, by the way.
Yeah. There was already something
so
there.
shout
Yeah. And like, but like the way I was raised for sure. But then of course, like when I broke my back, I think that's when I really developed the fortitude that I have now.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, of course, growing up, doing hard work and hard labor, being more outside really educated me to, develop my own grit and find out that I was capable and to kind of be that courageous wild woman that you see me today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have, like in high school, did you do any athletics or anything?
Yeah. So I played everything when I was in like middle school and stuff, but then I broke my back. And so in high school, I just was finally recovering from that.
Okay.
And I was going to return to horse races. So I started doing athletics again when I was a sophomore.
Okay. So
for a freshman, I struggled
you
to
broke,
walk.
when did the back break happen?
When I was 12 years old.
Okay. And how did that happen?
So I grew up actually when I was 6 years old. I started racing horses in 25 and 50-mile horse races in a sport called endurance riding.
I didn't even know that existed.
Me either.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Wait a minute. Here. Wait, let's hold on here. 25 to 50 miles.
Oh, you didn't even know that.
No, I didn't, because I've ridden horses before, and my groin, boy, after like 20 minutes, bruh.
It burns when you have to pee afterwards. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, is this like timed? I mean, obviously fastest time over the 25 or 50 miles.
Yeah, let me tell you about
is it like let's hear it.
Yeah. Okay. So endurance riding, it's a smaller equestrian sport, but basically they're always held on national parks or private ranches, and they can range from 25 to 100 miles long.
So very pretty scenery.
Yes, and so you'll notice a trend in my life. I'm always doing things with scenery, right? Or being out there. So anyways, so they're held like that, and basically you follow kind of a loop system. So for example, if you have a 25-mile race, they'll be like, okay, here, the first loop, you follow the yellow ribbons to the blue ribbons, which will bring you back to base camp.
Okay.
And then when you come to base camp, you will go through a vet system, because before the race, they also vet check you. Mm-hmm. And so the cool thing about endurance riding is they constantly vet check you. So they'll grade the horse and check it.
So they make sure it stays healthy.
Yeah, and you pass it. And so you're graded. Good. So it matters when you finish top 10, like that grading system. But anyways, you kind of race it as fast as you can. You just go out and do these loops all together. Okay. Like racing wild on a horse.
I'm guessing there's like amateur and professional level of this.
Oh, yes. Okay. And so you'll race as fast as you can out in the wild, and then you come back, do your vet check, pass it. You have a 45-minute hold. Generally, that's all dedicated to cleaning the horse, feeding it, and then like maybe you shove some carrots in your mouth, and then you get back on the horse and you go back out and you finish that last.
Carrots in your mouth or the horse's mouth?
Both.
Okay.
You
got to refuel.
Yeah. And then so
got to get that beta carotene.
Right. And then
What's
you
up?
fix my eyes.
Yeah,
and then you go back out, you race, you do that last lap as fast as you can, right? Or whatever. That you could do the whole distance, but if you failed that last vet check, then you have a DQ, a did not finish. So you have to pass that last vet check, and then you finish. Okay. And then you finish the race.
So there's some strategy involved. It's not just as fast as you can.
Yeah, and here's the other cool part about it. So say you finish top 10.
Yeah.
those vet checks, those grades matter now. So then they put you into the system that they have, and then they'll vet check you again. And according on those grades, they find out who's best in condition and give that award out. So that means out of the top 10 riders, your horse with the weight that it carried and everything and all this like little, program that they have or formula, they say this is the horse that was best in condition out of the top 10, which is kind of better than just getting first. Yeah. And so me and my boy Chance, the last horse I was racing on, we got BC like twice and stuff. Okay. I love racing, but once I got older and got the contracts, I kind of just started doing that more, and kind of got hard to do both. Yeah. So you broke your back. Was it during a race, or was it during practice, or just at the ranch? Yeah. So where I grew up was like there was a bunch of land out behind my house, so I was just gonna go ride the horse out over there, and I was. It was an evening ride, and it was dark time, and I was running up this hill, and a deer jumped out in front of me, and all I can really recall is falling off. Like I just know that there was an incident. Yeah. And to be honest, like it's been so long that I don't recall everything. I just remember like Socks was there, and I got home, and then my life just changed. Like I just remember everything started to increasingly get painful. I just remember things were not right. I remember even that night I wasn't right. Right. And suddenly, now I'm here. Okay. You know what I mean? Like I just remember. Did you go to the hospital that night? No, I didn't. I went back home, and then like I think it was like maybe around a few weeks or a month, we started going, my parents started taking me to the doctor, and I was, starting to get in a lot of pain where I couldn't really get up out of bed sometimes. Wow. And I was just always like complaining and hurting. And literally, I just remember like I started getting really quickly to the point, and I know you could probably resonate now. Like, when you have so much pain that it feels like it's in the back of your eyes, and it just controls your whole body. I've only had that a few times in my life, but yes. Yeah, and it takes vocals away. That's how I would feel as a young kid, and I just remember it would just grow, and it would grow, and it would truly grow to the point where I didn't have legs, right? To get up in the morning. So like, it took a year to find out what was wrong with me. A year? Yeah. So we went. Like the doctors couldn't figure it out? Yeah, I unfortunately got like misdiagnosed. Interesting. So let's hear that. So yeah, like I first started going, to get chiropractic work and stuff like that, which obviously did not do anything good for me. At one point, I was casted for a metal back brace. Well, it was like a hard plastic brace, but it went from the collarbone to the pubic bone. I had to wear this thing 22 hours out of the day. And you're how old at this point? I am 12 years old, and the kids would like throw, tennis balls at it, and it would like, and like it just was the worst time to be different and to be weak. Too. So kids are tough. Yeah, they were really mean to me. Like they'd grab my pillow, throw it across, all these things, and I don't want to say I hated it, but it was just different. Right. I was alone. You weren't used to it. I was very alone because there wasn't many kids who were in pain like I was in pain. Right. So after the year, they've finally figured out. Well, I had this accident, right? So finally we go to this doctor this chiropractor who's like, let's do decompression on you, which is a treatment where they get traction. Yes. They pull you from the hips and the ribs. Sounds good. Yeah. Yes. It sounds kind of feels like it feel a little good. This is about to get spicy. So yes, we like spice here at SixPackLab. Let's go. Right. One day she like ups my weight by like 50 pounds, so 25 pounds each way, and it rips all those tendons in the back in my back because unfortunately we found out that God, are you serious? 2 weeks later we go into the specialist because I almost got paralyzed that day, but we found out that my spine was not connected to my sacrum since birth because I was born with a birth condition. I was also born with basically spondylobifida, but it was born in a case where they didn't know that you had the condition until it was born in a case where like my whole entire lumbar was degenerating and slipping forward. So it had spondylolisthesis, and then it just kind of like stopped growing and did not connect to the sacrum. And so my body, our bodies are very unique and strong. Of course. And it built like this random block of bone that was kind of floating back there, and it hid these breaks because I also broke the L4 and the L5. So what they did was they fused my lumbar, and they got 4 metal rods and 6 screws and put them into my sacrum and into my, L1 and L5, and just kind of like give me these 2 hinges now, which to be honest, like today's actually like a terrible back day. Like I've been in quite a bit of pain. Say still pain. Yeah. And it comes and it goes, but it's been a journey. Like nothing compared to what then after that moment. I mean, the next like 2 years was just a battle just to even like knock out constant nerve, random pain. But so I went from, also before that, I went from like I played basketball, soccer. I was actually very good at soccer. I was like elbow girls and all that kind of stuff. Very aggressive.
Dirty player.
I actually really, really love physical sports. Like I would love to play rugby, and like I'm very much a buffalo. Like I work, but I can't afford that because of my back, and it's hard. Because I've got a mind that can do a lot, but a body that can do a lot, but there is true limits. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I don't put limits on me, but there's...
You obviously don't have very many limits, but that's
there's
a limiting factor.
But you risk more damage, right?
Yeah, and like, you know, like we were speaking before we started this podcast, like longevity has become a very important thing throughout my life. Yeah. Right. So... I feel like
that's why I switched to the golf course from the football gridiron, man.
Yeah,
that's it, baby.
A little bit better.
What was the recovery like immediately after that major surgery? Was it like a year, 2 years? I mean, would you have to go to physical therapy? What was that like?
So I was in the hospital for maybe around like 10 days, and they really got me on the walkers and just kind of like made me try to walk a lot. And then after that, for a year, I went to PT twice a week. And I remember just back in the day, they'd usually do a lot of like massaging and like kind of retrain me to, I don't want to say I wasn't able to walk, but they would help me walk and like use those hips and those like glutes in my back because like, it was all connected, and like I was bionic, you know, I had to relearn how to be able to kind of use that.
A lot of those muscles atrophied.
Yeah. And so I went to therapy and all that for about a year. And then for the year after that, I still struggled a lot with just weird complications that came on and off. Like I would have random nerves that would go off, mostly the sciatica.
I'm sure that felt good.
Yeah, and because it's unfortunate where one of my rods are at, it's just right there in that SI joint, basically. So, like, anytime I get some type of swelling, it puts pressure on it. When I have my period, it puts pressure on it. Like, I have, if I were to get pregnant, it would, like, probably just, like, go kill the nerve because there would be way too much pressure. Like, it'd be like, die.
It became over.
Yeah, so,
nerve dead.
Yeah, and so, like, I think for about 2 years, I really was very fragile because I'm still very fragile. Like I'm reminded it constantly, but I've built a strong body, so it's protecting it, you know. But
so you had all this happen to you when you were age 12, 13. I'm trying to understand. This is incredible. How did you get into the death racing, and how did you do that with that? And well, first let's briefly explain death racing. Because a lot of people are like, death race, what is that?
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought it was a literal race.
Are there like, like the movie?
I had.
You were in a prison? I'm like, yeah.
When
that's why my head's shaved.
So what's the death race? Give us a quick synopsis.
So I like to like make a funny light summary over it. Take Survivor in the movie Saw and combine it into a race.
Okay. And there's so in a Spartan race, is that considered a death race? Or?
So no, Spartan races are their own thing. You have your sprint, your super, your beast, which are all different distances.
What about Tough Mudder? Is that
with different obstacles and are how many obstacles? And Tough Mudder is kind of like a set course with, you know, a set amount of distance with obstacles, right? But the death race was actually what first started within the Spartan race. Joe and Andy at the time had designed it. But basically the death race, it has no true start line and it has no true finish line. Throughout the years, you had different times where they allowed crew members or they didn't allow crew members. So it's a self-supported race where it's always held in Pittsfield unless you go do the traveling one, which was in Mexico City. And we raced on the volcano Papa de Capital, outside the city limits.
Sounds dangerous.
Mexico. Oh, that I can tell you about the Mexican death race. I loved that one. But anyways,
man.
So like the death race, like the best way to really put it is I don't really want to call it a race because every race was different for every single buddy. They would sometimes lie to you, steal your equipment, make you take your clothes off, steal your clothes or your shoes.
Like that was like part of the.
They would set up part of the thing. They'd set up kind of like moles in the race to piss you off. Like they would intentionally be sloppy and teamwork stuff.
Really? And would that be like for everybody or just certain individual racers?
A little bit of both. So like, unfortunately,
crazy.
You know, I never really tried to be famous. It just kind of happened. So like it kind of fucked me over when I was competing in those
Right.
things.
Because then you went to popularity. Now they're like, let's get
You
her.
don't want special attention, and everyone who works in a tactical or like survival race like that knows that you don't really want. I don't want to be a name when I show up to those things because they're always looking at me.
You want to be under the radar.
Yeah, they're looking. Yeah, you want to be fucking under the radar.
Yeah.
And first off, my appearance does not help me at all because I had leopard hair. So what was I thinking? But anyways, that's a little. But but like so. The death race usually had the staple discipline of always chopping and splitting wood. Okay. And that was one of the big things. You're always going to guarantee be orienteering, which is, navigating with, like compass and the count, footstep and the little map. And you have points, things like that.
Is there's you can see some of this on YouTube, right?
It's starting to get more like,
Ray, why don't you try and pull something up?
Yeah, I mean, there's a pretty decent one that like 16:9, I think a Canadian thing reviewed the death race, and you see a video of me like wrapping my feet in it.
Okay, what do we search for?
Do you know what that?
Yeah, what do we search for? We're pulling it up.
16:9 death race. But it's like a
I want to see
16-minute clip, but it kind of reviews some things. But basically, you go in and out of doing solo things to maybe they bring you back in and kind of like haze you as a group or things like that. And the thing about the death race is I always say people who competed in it actually really needed a lesson. They needed something because it's so extreme. And like I said, you're racing anywhere from basically 24, 40 hours to 72 hours, and you have no idea when it's going to be done. And I really like that factor.
Is there sleeping involved?
If you need to, yeah, sure, you cuddle up or you
people,
sleepwalk. Yeah, no, you compete through, but it's your race, you know. For me, I was always going. Yeah. Granted, there was times where I like fell down and fell asleep, like in the team race. Yeah, it was like we were like strapped in together.
Okay.
I fell asleep sleepwalking because we were strapped in, and so I was just like this.
Oh, you were tied up and like oh my god.
Does that look like it?
Yeah. This is the video.
Okay.
And I really know these guys really well. Like one of the guys they review in this video, Jonny, now helps with the death race, but the death race is, gone on for years, and as you can see, they kind of like the best word to say it is, excuse my French, is like there's just pure fuckery. Like at all times, they're really wanting you to quit. So the best thing I liked about it
were they carrying axes?
Yeah. Okay. And I've seen a guy split his knee open on an axe that he had like left open and fell. So
I bet that was
and it's so cool to see this video because I see all my homies because these are like some of the OG people you'll see in here.
So what's real quick? What's the percentage of men to women in this?
There's
competing?
definitely more men, but honestly, the women that you see there, oh my gosh, are they some women?
They're badass.
Yes, I mean everyone, but it's this race.
Can anybody sign up?
They had it set up that way, I think, but now I think you have to qualify. Or like show that you can do an ultra race.
Okay.
They've kind of made it a little harder because now everything is a little bit more mainstream. But this like stuff back in the day was a little bit more like how it was. I'm not sure how they do it, but I kind of think I want to compete in it next year. And now when I say that, I bet you
really coming out.
Joe hears this, he'll be like, "Hi."
Coming out of retirement.
There's my feet.
Okay.
Go back.
Go back. Where we at?
Go back. There's my feet.
Oh, we got the feet.
Dang, they are old grandma feet.
That was before they got even worse. Yeah.
Oh, hey. Hi. So I'm guessing, I remember, man, they used to, way back in the day on ESPN, they used to show those, I want to say just the endurance races where they would have like a team of 4 people and they would have to go really, really far.
Yeah, see,
and I remember the big adventure racing, and the big thing was these people's feet would just get fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
Like no matter what they did.
Yeah.
And they would show it up close. Would it get like that?
Oh man, like my feet have gotten really destroyed, but I've seen worse. Like some people have lost like the entire skin off of their feet. I've lost like sections just because like one thing that they also do, especially with these races,
we don't do that in Miami.
They usually ruin your feet on purpose. Like they'll just run you in and out of water. And like the thing is foot care is number one. Pretty much all these athletes showing up, we are very good with foot care. Usually we have our own little weird routine and how we lube them and all that kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so you might get your feet all clean and you get your socks on and then you're back in the water and then you're running. Like one race I did 120 miles, and I changed socks probably like 7-8 times and I still had ruined
120 miles the whole race.
Yeah.
Holy cow. How that took what, 2-3 days?
It was about 3 days, yeah.
Oh
and
my
then
God.
my most recent race I did, which honestly I've been talking about racing lately, and it really makes me want to compete because then
So
I
you're
forget
thinking
how
about getting
fucking
back in?
good I used to be.
Yeah, I know. Well, hey,
But my last race I
we're gonna
did-
get to that. We're gonna let
Yeah.
the people know
My
how
last
good you
race
used to
I
be.
did was 83 something
You
miles, and
might
I
have to
beat
make an
the men
announcement today.
there. Yeah.
Is it going down?
Are you
Yeah.
gonna make an announcement?
Here in the
You're
Six
gonna
Pack
make-
Lab.
Breaking
Hey
news.
Joe, she's coming back. Okay, so I have so many more questions. Okay, so we kind of figured out we see what's going on here. This looks definitely like fuckery, and it looks like very intense. And we're talking 2 to 3 day races. We're talking anywhere from I'm guessing a minimum of like 50 miles or something, and then up to 150 miles or
Yeah.
something.
10% completion rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 90,
What?
90 so 9 out of 10 people were done within the first day or
and
two.
even within the first day, like 8 hours, it's
Okay.
always crazy. They'll be like, 100 people are done by hour 10.
How did you do in your first race, and what was that experience like? First race.
So I'm a really ballsy little child back in the day.
And how old were you in your first race?
I was 18 years old.
Okay, probably just old enough to enter, I'm guessing.
At the time, I was the youngest. Yeah, I was the youngest female for sure. I was very scared and nervous because when I showed up, I realized it wasn't just like a little thing that I was about to do. But I was in this mode of like I kept looking at something extreme to do, and I entered into it. First off, I wasn't very properly prepped with a good rucksack and all this. Like I had the shit, but I didn't have the shit very.
So that's the bag he was carrying with the axe in it. And
yeah. We
everything?
always have a rucksack and all that
Okay,
kind of.
and has all
right?
kinds of like survival gear and shit.
Yeah,
in it.
yeah,
Okay.
and like you over the years you learn how to pack it better, like where the weight needs to go and things like that. So
Strategy.
it's like my strategies weren't up to par.
Okay.
And actually, my first experience was back in 2012, and actually, I have one of the most intense first experiences because I had Team Tire. So what happened was, it was actually in this video. They in the beginning of the race, they separated into several groups of people, and they called us teams. And basically, my team got this tire. There's a giant tractor tire that we were instructed to carry a blood route. So anyone who knows Death Race or the Vermont series or all those peak races knows that blood route is a bloody, rooty, terrible trail up in the Vermont mountains. Okay.
It's in Vermont.
Yeah, so imagine the mountains, okay? So
I'm definitely
and
I'm there with you
and
now.
the trail's called Blood Route, okay? Just kind of imagine.
That sounds scary. I'm scared.
So like this tire almost killed me twice because basically we had to make this tire go all around this trail, but at one point like the trail goes straight down, and so you had to guide it. So there was times where that tire almost took me down. But we took this tire all around, and it got to the point where at some point I had gotten stress fractures in my shin. So I ended up dropping like after 40 something hours.
Oh, wow.
But we had the tire for like 12 or 13 hours
Jesus
of like dragging.
That sounds
dragging. I'm talking
miserable.
about like a tire like as big
So
as this.
so after that, you're like, yeah, let's do another one.
No, yeah, I was hungrier because like what happened was there was like some fuckery right before I got dropped out, or like before I medically dropped myself, and they like lied to us and made us do all these things. But it was very like it pleased so many aspects of my mind that I was really eager to go back, but I was not prepared by any means. The only thing I had done before that was one 12-hour go ruck, and I showed up with a JanSport backpack, and I got fucked over.
I don't know anything about death racing, but I imagine you got roasted for having the JanSport backpack.
My shoulders did. They like broke. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like, the things I learned, and I just threw myself into these races that were really hardcore, but I loved it because you could see some of the most aesthetic looking athletes, but it was just all mind.
Yeah. That would be me. I would be done within 45 minutes. Everybody be like, "Oh, watch out for this dude. He's going to do good." I'd be done in like 20 minutes. So, when did you win your first one? How'd that feel?
It felt really, really good. Actually, before that, I won like my first Tough Mudder and Spartan races. So I won a lot of like smaller races.
Okay.
and stuff like
So
that,
after the first death race, you went and did some other Spartan and death race and started winning that?
No, I first started doing like half marathons and little 5Ks, and I won every single time like my age division.
Really? So just regular running races?
Yeah, I guess. So to backtrack, we'll go back to the beginning of I guess my running.
Sure.
So I just like when I graduated high school, I was still racing horses, but I knew at this point in my life that I couldn't afford anything, so all I could do was run. So I became a good runner. I was running 5Ks, half marathons, doing really well, got bored, found out about this Tough Mudder. I went to it. I won it. 2 weeks later,
The first one?
I went to a Spartan race. And here's the kicker on this one. I went to the Spartan race. It was 2011, the Glen Rose. It was raining. And I went and I won that by 20 minutes. And the reason why it was so impressive was because it was a championship race that day. And they had some Xterra pro athletes at the time. And I ended up beating them.
You beat the pros.
And I was 18 years old. And it was kind of honestly like, it was like a movie moment, because I want to say around 2 weeks later, I got a call from Joe himself or whatever it was. Like they were basically told me that were preparing to have a pro team in a few months, and that I was a prospect. And then literally, I think a month later, I got knocking on the door from someone else wanting to sponsor me. I took it. And then 2 weeks later, or a couple months later, here I am with a Spartan Race pro team contract. It just happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing a full paid contract, and you got to travel and race and everything.
And everything became real after
so
that
kind of
point.
the pinnacle achievement. I mean, of what you're doing.
And really, it was insane, because I really never asked for anything. What happened was I just started winning these things.
And I want to clarify, you were beating men too, correct?
Yeah, I was beating a lot of men.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was really well known for just being like this savage little young crazy girl, because my head was shaved. I'm very cinematic, so I remember these two guys that I met, and we became bros later on in my life. But they were like, the first time I saw you at that race, you were like tossing your head and your head was shaved, and I had like blue paint on my face. They were like, we were fucking terrified, and then you won. And it was scary. And I was like, yeah, I remember.
Like Braveheart.
And like years later, we talked about that, and I was like, yeah, I remember, because like, and it's really, if you practice this, but like, yeah, I am cinematic, because I envision myself being exactly what I want, and it's this wild, savage goddess, and I was able to just like use that.
You got to use vision. A lot of very successful athletes use vision.
Oh,
you gotta have vision.
And I'm 100% going to tell you that manifestation is real, because I did that shit.
What about flow? You ever experience flow?
Yeah.
Flow is a real thing. I read a book about that, and they were talking about Danny Way and his experiences with flow. Danny Way, the pro skateboarder that does those crazy fucking big air jumps.
Gosh.
Yeah, dude. But anyway, so I imagine when you get super like involved in a race and you're on, you kind of just, everything zones out and you're just jumping over fire and chopping down trees and stuff.
Yeah, well, the thing I like, not, okay, you know what, I should brag about myself a little more. The thing I find really interesting about my own self is I've noticed that I have a click-over ability.
Okay.
And the click-over ability happens when it's a task that is going to be grinding, that is going to be soul-crushing over time. Okay. Because it's almost like that's what my life feels like. Ever since I can recall, I have known what every morning feels like, a back pain. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel weary because I have constantly felt pain, so it's like I know that I am capable of grinding, and that's where I can just click over, and I know how to go to survival mode very easy.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you know how I think there's like 3 ways where we work kind of on the emotional side of the brain, or the conscious, or the emotional, conscious, or the survival part, right?
Right.
And so when you kind of learn when you're in chronic pain, you kind of just learn to be task at hand, right?
Right.
You can't get too emotional about it, because like sometimes that can develop bad habits, and then you get into something else. And then if you're conscious about it, you analyze everything, and you won't do anything with your life, right? You're like, what if I fall off the horse? I might break my back. So you don't get stagnant, right? So survival brain, yeah. So I think
interesting.
Our failures are great.
You're able to click over like that.
Yeah, and you have to.
During this whole time, during these races, you have screws and all this metal on your back. Is it painful, or are you saying that you're able to just click over and kind of numb it, and then when the race is over, maybe you're in pain?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
You know how you just kind of like sometimes get a second wind?
Yes, for sure.
It's because like
it's that beast mode.
Yeah, well, I've read up on a lot of like recent psychology reviews about like how when we hit muscle failure, that's actually just our brain.
That's the brain's
protecting.
failure.
Yeah, we actually have 50% left in our body, and it's always true because we see it, happen amongst many people, right? And that's the same thing in those races, because it could be hour 30 and I truly feel down. I have truly felt down in my life, but then there's something that maybe woke in me And suddenly there I am, like dancing through the woods with like fucking 80-pound bag, and you're just like, I love my rock. I fucking love my rock. And you're trembling, and you get the task done, and then suddenly you get there and you see your homies,
It
and you're like,
feels good.
yeah.
It's like I fucking did that.
And then suddenly you're just like, what the fuck? I can do shit. Yeah. But it's really hard to override. And that's why I keep saying, like, when I broke my back, it made me this great thing now, because I learned how to override that brain.
What's the craziest obstacle or maybe craziest event that they had you do?
Ooh, there's been a lot of weird things. Like, I guess one of the weirdest part was at the end of the Mexican death race. Well, first off, they made us carry a dead fish the whole race, and then at the end we had to cook it and eat it. So there's the start of that.
Ray, are we recording right now?
Wait, what?
This isn't. What kind of fish?
It was just a little Mexican piranha fish, whatever
just
it
a little
was.
fish?
Piranha.
Yeah,
Little bass, yeah.
And you had to carry it, and then you had to cook it and eat it when it was done. And how long was the race?
Like 52 hours.
Oh, I'm sure it was still
I had
really
muddy- I
good
had-
quality fish, and nobody got sick.
Nobody. I wasn't muddy butt for 2 weeks. No. That wasn't me.
My man, they screwed y'all. Here, wash it down with some Mexican water. You'll be fine.
Oh my God.
Okay, so go on. What's some?
So, like, first off, I think the task before that was we carried basically, at this point in my life, it was like half my body weight of like all this log up this like bushwhacking trail. But you get to this point and they're like, okay, this is summer camp.
Right.
All these tasks you have to do 25 rep, 50 rep, 75, and then, 100.
Okay.
Something like that. And so I don't remember everything, but it all involved, like, at one point you had to do a balancing walk thing. You had to flip a really heavy tire. You had burpees with the rock. You had a log roll. You
Burpees
had
with a rock.
someone pushed you on a swing in a circle. Like a kid would violently push you and you'd fly into this circle. And that
So you get dizzy.
So that would be one rep, one.
Yeah.
And that's 25. And then like some of the other tasks were,
So they had the
some were-
locals like participating. in it?
Yes,
That's
little-
cool.
yeah.
That's cool.
And, some of the other tasks I can't even remember, like there was definitely more balancing stuff. Like you had to walk across like swings and shit and then pick more heavy stuff up. So they're just trying to get you really sick. Okay.
Right.
So I get to this point, and at this point I'm in 6th place. I see my homie Patrick Mize. He's like, going through it. And I just click over, like I just said,
Right.
because it was a grind. It
Right.
was just find your pace, find that strategy, and just believe in it. And I do that,
Nice.
and I just clicked over and I started moving through. And here I go. I'm now in 3rd place, tied right next to Patrick, and he's vomiting. Because at this point he's on like the 50-round swing, and you just hear him like projectile vomiting, and then you hear someone else log rolling and vomiting into their own vomit. Like it's just like, or rolling into the, it was just like a shit show. Okay.
Yeah.
And so
Kind of like the club at about 2:30.
yeah, first
Okay.
off, the noise of vomiting
6
makes
feet.
me want to, the noise of vomiting makes me want to vomit. So, and I'm already rolling and trying to I
Yeah.
wanted to win,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was blazing through, but it was, that alone mentally was really like hard. It was stupid,
Yeah. Dude,
like
that sounds very intense.
it just, and like, I mean, that was, I wouldn't say that's like the hardest thing I've
Yeah.
done, but it's probably one of the most interesting things,
Interesting.
because if you break
Yeah.
it down, you would see how they were trying to crush us in all aspects,
That's
like mentally, energy wise.
Yeah,
and
not
like,
just physics. It's not just you have to climb over the wall. You have to
Yeah.
climb over the wall with a dead fish in your backpack while people make fun of you as you go over the wall
Right,
and throw
yeah.
things at you right now.
Yeah. And like, there's been like lots of memorization tasks that sure could have been very difficult. Like, I've had to carry basically a tree up a mountain and then shoot a gun and target and then go back down and swim laps and do it again like 5 or 6 times. Build a staircase wall of rocks that weigh way
So
more
would the
than me.
guys that created the events, would they do them before they would make you guys do them, or they would just come up with and be like, all right,
They kind of
have
did.
fun.
Let's just do
Yeah,
it.
they kind of did their own little one before. Like Joe did it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe,
Yeah.
but you didn't last long. So,
Got 'em.
but no, they definitely, they just sit there and brew up some evil shit. Most of these guys
Yeah.
are very tactical and sadistic, and like I said, people who compete in this really want. To
Was
mean
this
something.
like just open division, or was it like amateur and then
Kinda just
pro?
open,
It was
yeah.
open division. Okay.
Yeah, but everyone, like I said, if you were a name with
So some people would come in with sponsors, and like you could tell they were like experienced and
with
like
the death race, we were more of like a family and community. Now,
Okay.
granted, you had your true death race people, you
Uh-huh.
know, like people who who were very good and had lots of skulls, because every race you finish, you get a skull.
Like an actual skull?
Yeah, like a mimic.
Well, like a
skull,
fake.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But that's cool though.
Yeah, definitely. People like.
I mean, I get swords for winning bodybuilding shows. I think it's dope.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we get skulls. So
That's cool.
But yeah, you had the names within the community. But actually, my favorite part about it was like, say you showed up to a death race and you're like, oh, I forgot my camel pack and my entire rucksack. Someone would be like, here you go. Like it was truly a
community
family
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. And you would experience that as well out on the trail. And I really love that about that sport. But it did kind of change a little bit as the years have gone by.
And you said they only compete in a few different places? These races are only in a few different places?
The death race is only in Pittsfield, Vermont, and then the traveling death race was held in Mexico City. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And it's each one time a year, or?
So there's the winter death race, which is in
Oh, no way.
yeah,
not
Vermont,
happening. Not
and then the
happening.
summer death race, which is in June, and then the traveling one is like in September.
Okay, awesome. And now you started to get some sponsorships. You got that mainly. You first got that through doing the Spartan and the and the other thing.
I think what actually kind of made me famous was the first half marathon I did. I finished and I like pinched my sciatic nerve, and like this magazine posted I got posted in the newspaper, and it kind of went viral. And then Facebook was the only outlet at the time, and it was on Facebook. And that's how some companies found me. And then eventually, I actually remember when Instagram started.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I don't remember who I was with, but I remember it was like, I guess I'll start this thing.
Yeah. I remember for
Here's
sure.
my selfie.
I was on it early.
Yeah.
I think I took a picture of a pair of my running shoes was the first.
Right. I think mine's of
That's
me
the
and
most
my
Johnny
weird
thing that you can
take. Yeah. Where's the womp? Give me the old number 4, Ray. That's me in my first Instagram post. I've never deleted anything. It's probably still there. I'll have to go back and look.
Right.
But you're right. It's like
I remember
you
when
want to
it
start
started.
promoting and
and I remember when that switch over happened, and so I started being on Instagram, and before I knew it, like I said, just like people started really throwing offers at me the more I was racing and competing. I mean, there's so many things about me though that I think that's why I scaled up.
Okay.
Was just like,
so here in the SixPackLab, we get to the nitty gritty. What kind of money are we talking here? If you care to share.
It wasn't.
And what
like,
was it like? Was it like a? Yeah, go ahead.
It wasn't like I was banking. I
Right.
mean, I did make some good money when I competed. So like sometimes I would walk away with like $8,000 a weekend.
Okay.
And
a weekend?
Yeah.
That's pretty good
That ain't
payday.
bad.
That's a pretty good payday.
Yeah, because like like if you won, sometimes the payout was like $5,000, and then in my contracts you could have bonus checks or something of that sort, right?
Okay. Right.
So you could be smart, and then the more you got better, right? And then like later on in my years, it was kind of a basic minimal monthly. Like you could, I guess, like semi live off of it, but I definitely needed other income.
Okay.
But then
and what was that? Where did you start looking for other income?
Massage therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I had so many sponsors at one time that I didn't need any help at all.
Wow.
And I was
that's
also
great. It's impressive. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. And I was also at the time living at home, so I was saving and saving.
You were smart.
Yeah, I was young still.
Yeah.
Like people, I was 19
That's
years old
super
with
young to have
about
a
6
sponsorship.
sponsorships. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's
and
fantastic.
about every weekend, or not every weekend, every month, I was probably somewhere either competing or going to a fitness convention at the time.
And you would get paid for the appearances, I'm sure.
Yeah, I had different types of endorsements for
Okay.
sure. And like I said, it was just interesting. I just started noticing like people, everywhere I went, people like, just kind of wanted to converse. And it was an interesting process because like I said, I didn't really ask for it. I just was like really starting to obsess about moving my body. And it was really fun.
I remember you from, I think you were sponsored by the Flag Nor Fail too, right?
Yeah. They were one of my first
that one.
sponsors. Yeah.
And that was, I think, because they were starting to get super popular in the fitness world.
Yes.
And I just remember I saw your face on their stuff all the time.
Yeah,
So-
and he was one of the first people who found me. He found
Rob?
me because of that. Yeah, Rob
Yeah.
found me because of that article that I mentioned.
Okay.
I think he saw that story, started following me, and then I actually remember talking to him back when I was like 18 years old. I was sunbathing outside on my parents' sunroof, and he called me, and we discussed some things, and he was really intrigued with my story.
That's cool.
And sure, one thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was their first, and I have been
Yeah,
the
you were-
one and only sponsored athlete.
That's crazy.
And yeah, it was.
Well, I'm pretty sure you're one of the very few people that can like kind of carry the image that they push is the grit and the toughness and the flag nor fail. So that's super cool. Now, I know that they were getting super popular at the time. I met Dana Lynn backstage at the Olympia one year, Rob too, and they were super friendly, super nice people. So did not just them, but do you feel like the sponsors like them and it's kind of like helped you along with your career? Did you network through them? Did you meet other people?
Yeah, like they definitely help. So Flagner Fell and then all the other sponsors I collected, it definitely helped me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a jump start, but I mean, everything is connected. So once one thing happened, the next happened, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it all just started to fall into place.
Yeah.
But I would like to take note that like my relationship with Flagner Fell at one point was great. And then before I knew it, when I finally opened up about what I went through with my eating disorder, Rob actually body shamed me over it and let me go.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
But
I didn't know that.
It's okay. There's actually we can get more into it. Him and I actually have been discussing on how to help fix what he has done and help. So it's like this is kind of like a nerve-wracking thing to first say, but like we've talked many times, and it's something that I think needs more attention though, because at one point I feel like I was real too soon almost, because now we see more people talking and being vocal about weaknesses, especially within, high elite athletes confessing that they have eating disorders or things of that sort. Yeah. It's not as taboo when you have elite athletes come down with it. But back in the day, it felt like in the social media world, I was a little too soon because that they weren't ready. No one seemed ready for it, so I was let go. I was let go.
Okay.
And after over these years, it's caused me a great deal of PTSD, and I've been vocal about it.
Okay.
And so I guess where I'm trying to get to is Rob and I got to a point where he finally reached back out to me and told me he wanted to make an amends for it, and he realized what he had done.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
good.
think that alone,
That's good.
and me being able to say this right now, I think people hopefully see that we can do harm to people, but we can also go and forgive them, and we can forgive ourselves.
Of course.
And I think that's a big lesson that more people need to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because a lot
of people hold grudges.
Yeah, and I've been in so much pain over it. It almost ruined me for sure. Yeah.
I do appreciate you sharing that, and we were going to get to that, and I'm glad that you're an open person. But during your times of competing, all that success, you had that black cloud, or you had those issues with an eating disorder issue. How did that come on?
I was so unwell. So it happens, when I was a senior in high school. I had this little boyfriend at the time, and I started noticing that I was growing more disconnected with my body, and slowly I started starving myself. And then at this time in my life, this is when I started running 5Ks, half marathons. And I started really liking the way I looked and also the way I felt, which is very important. Because I had this constant little feeling, this just hungry, which I was, right? And so I noticed that feeling would grow, and it would also grow each time I won. Because it seemed like the more I starved and the tinier it got, the more I won.
Interesting.
And then suddenly one day, I couldn't starve anymore. I couldn't run these races and eat only 100 calories a day or whatever it was at the time. I remember it was just insane what I used to do.
Yeah.
I would just barely eat, or I would eat just enough, and then I'd go into the gym and I'd make sure that calorie machine showed me the exact same calories that I know that I ate.
Right.
And I'd cancel it out, and then I'd train more and more. So I developed this, right?
Into a pattern.
And then one day I just ate 6 burgers.
Right.
And I threw it up that night, and I knew I would never be the same, and I wasn't.
Right.
But at the same time, this is when I started winning more races, and they started getting more intense. So I started eating more, and it was weird because I was doing bad things, but I was also going up.
Right.
And a lot of people praised me, so it was very inflicting on what was I doing.
That's a very tough situation.
Yeah, and I think suddenly I didn't know how to connect with my body, because it had been to a point where I wasn't connected to it because it hurt so much, and then suddenly it was whoa, I can do a lot with my body, right?
Right.
So I had this weird obsession, And I mean, every single race I did, I would definitely do a lot of work. Okay. I would get very fit, like I would work very hard, but then 2-3 weeks out, I would fall back into very bad cycles of binge eating and purging. And I would show up to these races and the whole night I'd been binging, and I would somehow do them, and I would do them well.
And you would win.
And the worst part would be like, you know, you'd be like, yes, and it would feel like I could forget everything.
Right.
And I could. And we'd go and we would celebrate, like, with my family or whoever I was with.
Right.
And I would still throw up that meal of celebration. So
Right.
it was so empty. Like,
Yeah.
when you start to think about it, I just gave so much and so much to people. Because I remember that's when people only knew me for my back pain. They'd be like, wow, you're so strong. And it would just be like, but I'm like,
But if you only knew.
yeah. And so I hid it, though. It was like a beautiful art, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because it is like, one, I was being very artistic about like trying to hide it. I would try to like feel like I could be in control of it. And you develop ways to do it better.
Right.
And it's disturbing how well you get good at it, because it becomes like really a part of you, and because it is a part of you, you know, it really made me great. So I think that's also why I had difficulty opening up about it, because I also felt like a fraud due to the fact that people looked up to me for help.
I'm sure mentally it's just tearing you in 50 directions.
Yeah, like I just wasn't. Oh yeah, like you can't even begin to like touch it, you know.
Right.
And I was so young, and everyone thought I had my shit together. And I remember, I think this is why I really loved going to conventions, and I still do, because I would show up to these conventions, and people would come to me, and they would tell me their stories, and a lot of them would be similar to what I was having, and I would tell them, you know, how to love themselves and everything. I told them the advice that I wanted and needed, and I could be there for them, but I would leave these conventions, and I remember like all the time I'd cry, and I could feel people's pain, because it was like, I've been living that, and I can't even show that.
Can't even say it.
Yeah, so finally, I just couldn't do it anymore, because it got to the point where, one, you could really see an effect in my competing. Like I was, okay, first off, I was never the best competitor, you know, I was pretty sloppy, but I had the most grit. So I'd always fucking come real close to winning if I was not going to win, you know. Ella wanted it, okay?
Right.
You can never take that away from me. I'm aggressive as fuck, and I'll get it, right? But, where am I going with that?
The moment when you realized.
Oh, okay, like I would win some races, and then I'd get injured. You know, stress fractures almost every season.
Malnutrition.
It was, yes, it was so obvious. And you see it now with other athletes, you know. And my weight would fluctuate so much. So finally, like in 2013, I had torn the brevis and longus tendon in the foot. And, you know, it's kind of they call it like a slight career ruiner, because it's that stabilization. So like at first it didn't affect me. I was like, oh, this is not going to be bad. I'll recover. But it, you know, I didn't recover fast. My foot was really bad. I just kind of like fall over all the time. And at this point in my life, I was trying to stop purging. So I was putting on a lot of weight, and I couldn't walk. So I put on a lot of weight.
And you were doing this all on your own, trying to take control?
Yes, I did all the eating disorder work on my own at this time, but I was going to a PT for the foot. And I finally was like, one day I was really sloppy binging and purging, and I lost the fork in my throat because my fingers didn't work anymore, so I'd use like really long forks and stick them down my throat. And so I do that, and I had lost grip. Probably was only in there for a few seconds, but I pulled it out, and you know, 2 hours later I was back there, and it was that severe that I realized like I will die doing this, because I'm so black and white. you know, I'm just too aggressive. I'm just too passionate.
Right.
So I cannot be this too passionate with my illness.
Right.
So I finally, you know, it's kind of coming to like, okay, I'll finally suddenly speak. And, you know, that fall I went on that tour with Fagner Fell, and I felt so lost. And I continued to grow into this lostness that finally, and the next year comes, and in March of 2014, my second brother's graduating Marine Morse school, and I was binging and purging the whole time my brother graduated OCS class, and I wasn't present, like, you know?
Right.
And it killed me.
Yeah.
It killed me that I wasn't there because I was fighting so much in my head. So that night, after that weekend, I'm on my phone and I wrote this blog, and then I got home and I published that fucking blog. And I remember I read it like, you know, 27,000 times, right?
Right.
And I remember just bawling for like 2 weeks.
Okay.
I just cried.
Yeah.
And I felt like every single person knew. Like I was going to massage school at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd be driving and I'd be like, there'd be like a homeless guy on the street. And I remember just feeling like he knew that I had an eating disorder. I felt that naked. It was so weird. Because I finally showed myself, you know, and I showed up to school, couldn't stop crying. The massage therapist was like, "What's wrong?" Yeah. I was like, I finally admitted that I have this, you know, and it changed my life forever. Because after that point, like people started coming in for me to be there for me, and it was amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, it truly was. Like, I'll never take away the fact that like, what I went through was very, very hard, but I also have something that a lot of people who've also gone through what I've gone through don't have the comfort that I've received because I have some type of name or platform.
Right.
There's been so many people who have said so many warm things to me that I may have never met them or met them once, and they like want to love me that way. Like,
Yeah,
yes.
that's awesome, and that's a huge benefit of social media that a lot of is often overlooked.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and so that's what made me realize like. I'm so glad I never, because, you know, a lot of people confide in me. They're like, do I get off of Instagram or do I stay on? Because social media stresses me out. And I always wanted to get off.
Right.
But I stayed on because so many people, for some reason, wanted to tell me their pain and I could tell them and be there for them.
Right.
So I stayed on there for them. And now I feel like this is my purpose, is like what I go through is supposed to be told and supposed to help people.
Yes.
Because
and that's why we're talking about it today.
I didn't ask to be like famous. Like I didn't really, you know, I just shaved my head one day and was running around. like you know, I happened to get lost a few times, and you know, now I've learned from those, and now I can help people with it.
So mainly it was yourself and the help of loved ones and I guess fans, you could say, is what helped you control the situation, or did you have to seek help? Or
I did go to therapy for like around 5 or 6 months, and I relapsed in her care, and which I will make a note on, like, if for anyone who's going through an eating disorder, relapsing is actually a huge part of it. Like, you may have to do it way more than you want to, but it's something that, you know, success is only being on top of failures, because we only learn to do something by not doing it.
By not doing it wrong.
And the brain likes something familiar. So, and I really grew this thing of really fearing disappointment. So throughout my life, I've been trying to curb it. But anytime I disappointed anyone to the slightest, I would shut them out of my life and run away, and I'd feel really bad. So I relapsed during her care, and I just stopped going and no-show, never responded to any emails or calls. Same with my nutritionist, which was actually Lane Norton at the time.
Really?
Yeah, I worked with Lane for
Bio Lane.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan, Lane. If you see this somehow, I'm a big fan.
He's my boy. So I worked with Lane, and, you know, I went to
very knowledgeable.
Yeah, I went to a couple of his VIP camps as one of his, like, little, you know, helpers or whatever.
So you were doing the right things.
Yeah, you know, I've really always been aware, and I think that's also been the most painful part is, you know, I was always aware of the process. I was always curious, and I was always confident I could get out of it. But it was always constantly knowing that I had to sift through it in order to get through it. Like, so simple as that. But, like, you know, I knew I was capable, but it was, you know, I just kept taking the punches as they came, you know, type of deal.
What sort of advice do you have for any women, or, I mean, even males? What sort of advice do you have if anybody's dealing with something like this?
One thing that definitely helps is definitely always being vocal. And creativity and movement is key. You need to find like the natural placebos in your life, things that kind of like you might start noticing. If you feel this way and you act on it, it's going to lead to the next thing. What you need to start learning how to notice that and then collaborate with it and then redirect it, because what bulimia is, or disorders, basically it's like you're walking in this forest and then you see this real nice paved road and then here's the fucking jungle of Scaryville. You've got to go to Scaryville because like you've been walking a bad pathway. You've just been doing what you've been doing. And that's what an eating disorder, or they're just really brutal habits that kind of are triggered off of little things that we have to sit there and figure out. And the two things I always throw out there is creativity and movement, because when you move your body, you get to reconnect with it. It's a good excuse for you to kind of like get outside. I always went for walks. Walks are great. And then creativity, express, move. Everyone is an artist.
Yes.
You might be a cook, you might be a painter, musician, a builder, but everyone is an artist, true to heart.
You're
Humans
right.
are creators. So you need to find what your creating is, and you need to just throw yourself in it. And that's going to help you connect. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And then obviously if you're not sure where to turn, just consult with a medical professional. Clearly.
Yeah. And then like, honestly, I've done a lot of hard things in my life, but asking for help was the hardest thing I ever did.
You got to do it.
And it was the best thing, because now look at what I am doing, and I am so far away from Ed. But that first time of saying, I have this, what do we do next is the biggest victory that you can ever give yourself. And from there on, it's only up. You fall down 7 times, you get up 8.
Right?
Yeah, like I have failed so much. Like every day I woke up and I thought it was a new day. And about 80% of the time, I would do the same stupid shit again. And I
Right.
would be back into eating and binging and overtraining. And then I would get clean for a few weeks. Like it took me 2 years. Like it's a lot of work. And unlike being addicted to, alcohol or pills, like you have to face your drug every day.
Right.
So you have to, the sooner.
It's society. I mean, it's
Yeah,
food. It's there.
Yeah, the sooner you become at peace with that, the quicker you can heal and move with it.
Ella, I can't thank you enough for sharing all that information. So, moving on, we really appreciate that here, and that's why we that's why we want to talk about this stuff, is for awareness.
Yeah.
For those of you at home, if anybody out there is having issues with this or knows somebody with issues with this, is to be vocal.
Yeah, just and here's another thing, like with my experience, I've been vocal with people who ended up being there for me, and then I was vocal with people who ended up not being there, and I was insulted for it. And you have to understand that you cannot allow any type of bitterment to occur when you are going through something and someone cannot be there for you, because it means that they are going through something themselves and they cannot be there.
Right.
So it's a matter of learning that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. There comes a time in our life where we become sick, but then it becomes a choice. It becomes a choice to stay that way. Because once you realize that you need help is the moment you have a choice to change it. Because now you're aware.
Yeah.
And that's the brutal responsibility that humans have to start taking now.
Of course.
Yeah.
And now you're doing quite a few different things. You're an active person. So you're a LMT.
Yeah.
What are your a licensed massage therapist? What is your specialty or modality, or do you use any tools? Do you cupping or scraping, or what do you got over here?
I am really well known for my deep tissue and deep massage, which is
Yes.
actually a technique done without lubrication. It's
Yes.
just kind of more of like myofascia work.
Okay. Myofascial release. It's my
Mhm.
favorite.
I do
Yes.
Graston as well.
Little Graston.
Of course, Swedish.
Okay.
A little bit of sports and ortho.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to come try it out sometime because I get Bodywork I have a team that works on me. I've got an
Well, I can imagine.
Uh-oh.
You
I've
got a
got-
little bit of muscle mass there,
yeah,
my
I do. And then
guy.
with bodybuilding, it's you got to keep things loose. You got to be able to activate all the fibers and really train the muscle bellies, and get thick muscle bellies and train them to the fullest. And injury and just things like sitting in a chair all the time. It creates pain and stuff like that. So I use an acupuncturist. I use a chiropractor for dry needling.
Ooh, that's good.
I have a manual therapist, a bodywork guy, and then I have like a girl that lives in Dallas that travels down, and she can do a couple of the things, the structural integration, myofascial release, and she can do gua sha.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And but I love it all.
I guess I know a little Thai and Ashi, but I'm not certified. I just know some stretches.
You just know it.
Like
Okay.
Yeah,
What's your favorite to do out of all of those?
Well, honestly, like if you were to just come to me, like just give me, the Ella massage. I'm like I've been told I'm very poetic, but very deep and but relaxing. So there's moments of like, wow, and then it's like you drift away. Okay. So, because I'm very poetic, I'm
intrigued. I gotta get a session. I'm in.
No, you'll like kind of like go somewhere else, and you'll be like, wow.
Okay, I'm in. How do people reach out to get a session with you if they're in the greater Austin, Leander, if they want to get a massage session, how they reach out?
I guess they can talk to me or contact me through my email or Instagram, but I'm actually really like trying not to do as much massage. So I kind of have
She's selective.
I almost have a closed clientele right now because I am full.
Totally cool. That's good.
No, but you can still like, there's times where I'm definitely still wanting to give that
the
art
people
away,
who work on me are also like 3 or 4 months booked out.
Yeah.
When you're good and you have a client base, you're good.
And I'm also tattooing full time now, so
that was we were gonna get to that.
So I can't do everything.
Yeah,
and
multifaceted over here. You're also an entrepreneur. What's going on with that?
Yeah. So I actually saw that you have a Patreon account.
Yes.
So can you tell us about that?
So I
Patron?
I run a Patron.
And tell them what Patreon is.
What's a Patreon?
And then about your account.
Patreon is a wonderful thing for a lot of creators who were wanting to create things and are really struggling with maybe like income or something like that, or just like being able to do it. So basically I started my Patreon to pay for my apprenticeship because it costed me some money. So I was like, well, how do I do this? And so I have always had a burning passion for doing photos and being like this wild nature girl. And so I developed a couple of tiers. People sign on, they come off, they sign on. But basically for the past few months, I've run a Patreon account that has a bunch of my photos, workouts, some sketches, and head rambles. But a lot of it's just basically me kind of like a little bit naked in nature, just running around being hello. But here's the thing is like...
You're supposed to be naked in nature.
Yeah, but here's the thing is like... I really put a lot of work and thought into a lot of my photos, and I really like putting a story out there. And it's not just like some simple nudes. Like it's very kind of like artistic, and a lot of people who are members.
It's not like it's for like a centerfold. It's like artistic, like rendering. Yeah, you put a lot of thought into the whole scene and the item. And you wear things in them and
Like I always have like skulls or crazy like outfits and like Native American. I paint my face up like
very cool.
Yeah, like very primitive stuff usually. So it really kind of releases like an inner child, an inner wild thing out of me. So it's a good expression. And also like me being able to create like this on this platform also helps me avoid plateaus in my drawing field or tattooing field.
You got to keep it fresh. You got to keep the content coming.
Yeah, because I also like I adore women and like drawing, so like I almost adore my own stuff, so I learn how to pose, and that almost helps me learn how to draw good, better women or like creatures. Does that
you know
what
art.
I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because my photos, I'm trying to portray a mood or a feeling, so when I am working and doing those photos, usually that feeling can help inspire that drawing that I do that night or the next day. You know what I mean? Okay. Like you said, it keeps you fresh. I'm just creating in all aspects.
And it's a steady stream of income out of this, right?
Yeah, and like I said, like I'm not afraid to show what I make on here, but like it comes and it goes. Like at one point I had maybe like 120 Patreons, and it goes down to 80 or it goes down to 90. I've had people come and like be on for like a month, and then they'll tell me like, hey Ella, I have to get off because I need to save some money, but I plan on coming back. And then they do. And then you have people who come on for like 10 days. It's really amazing that these people just want to like pay a few bucks a month to support you.
That's cool.
You know,
that's very cool.
Yeah, so it's definitely a little bit more of an intimate setting in all types of means. But
and Ray, of course, will throw the link in the description so you can check it out and support Ella if you'd like to. Very cool. Very impressive.
And here's the one thing, like the more I've started doing this, the more I want to create better photos, but some of the stuff I want actually involves money. Like some of these like really cool outfits and like sceneries that I need to do these shoots, and I'm like, oh, that's like, some money.
Arcade expensive.
Yeah, so
expensive.
like this not only helps support me, but it
Right.
also encourages me to go do those things
Yeah.
because I'm finally seeing the flexibility to do so.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels cool.
Ray, throw that link in the description for her.
I got you.
Yeah.
So you're tatting too. How'd you get into that? Where's Ray? You got us hooked up over here?
Oh yeah.
Wrong one. You're supposed to use the tattoo buzzer.
Yeah.
Oh, the tattoo.
You goober?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
you
not really
goober.
like it's like
There it is.
Oh my God.
There it is. Yeah, we needed to use it. So you got into tattooing because you're an artist at heart. You've always drawn and done art.
Yeah, I've always
Okay.
been a doodler, and I always used to draw horses when I was little.
Okay.
And I actually started drawing to heal myself back in 2015, and then it quickly became a business for me, like as a freelance artist.
It was part of your healing process.
Yeah, just going back to drawing.
Okay.
Because like for probably a strong 3 years, I maybe doodled some stuff, but I really didn't draw. I didn't put any energy really into it. And then in 2017, I really started to.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I started doing commissions to commissions, and I was really getting to a point where I started wanting to doing more with my art. I knew I wanted to design some clothes, but I knew that was later on. But I started realizing that I wanted to put it on skin, and then
Okay.
I started getting commission after commission for tattoo designs.
Interesting.
So I started.
And people were reaching out on social media.
Yep.
Very
Social
cool.
media, and then some word of mouth, because
Yeah.
I would always be like at a coffee shop, and believe it or not, like I have had a few incidents where, cause like sometimes when I draw, I'm like making the animal's face or I'm like dancing, so I'll be like
You'll be into it.
like,
You'll be
yeah,
into
like
it.
I'm definitely like, yeah, because like it helps me create the
Right.
expression more, and
Right.
I don't know, I'm just a little like,
You're an
whatever.
artist.
Yeah, so I've had people come up to me and they're like, "Can I see what you're doing? Like, you look really happy." I've actually, that's how I got, hired to do an album cover like that. Things like that.
That's super cool.
Yeah, like where I was just out doing my thing. So it just started happening, and I actually got 6 no's before I got my first apprenticeship gig. But basically, I started reaching out
Yeah,
to.
to become a tattoo artist, you have to go through. I have a buddy that tried to do this, and you have to go through an apprenticeship, and it's pretty tough, right?
It's a process,
Yeah.
and technically, like I still will be and still am apprentice. It's
Uh-huh.
just like I'll get to that section in a second, but like.
Sure.
Basically, I reached out to a lot of artists, and most were intrigued but could not take me at the time. And then one day I was massaging this client who was really about me. He was just like intrigued with my look. And he got to asking, like, what did I want to do? I told him I wanted to be a tattoo artist. He's like, "Oh, my friend owns a shop. Can I see some of your sketches?" I show him my sketches. Before you know it, I have a meeting
Okay. Then.
with the manager. She's this cute little girl. I go in and I get this apprenticeship, and
That's great.
they cut me kind of a deal because they're like very intrigued with my artistic eye and ability. So they cut me a deal of like a 6-month paid apprenticeship. So, I pay them for 6 months of education.
Right.
Now, nowadays you can get anywhere from 6 months to maybe like 2 years or a year of an apprentice. It's not as brutal as it used to be back in the day, but
Right.
you can definitely get apprentices that, take a lot of your money, take a lot of your time, or they do both, or maybe you're lucky and it's neutral, right?
Right.
So I paid, but I didn't get like an excessive amount. So I started going to the shop all the time, which I started working down East Side, Rosewood and Chicon.
Chicon,
Yes.
East Side,
Yeah.
ATX 512. What's up?
Yeah, exactly.
What's
So I
up?
started working at this shop called
I'm East Side 51st. What's up?
I started, well, here, I'll give him a shout. I started working at this shop called Ink Empire.
For sure. Give him a shout.
My
Yeah.
mentor, Nate, at the time, they honestly were really great to me. And they started training me, and it was, this is the most humbling thing I've ever started. Like, the thing about tattooing is it's instantly permanent. It's instantly reviewed.
Yeah.
And it's and all artists are very sensitive about their craft. So,
Right.
one thing I'm like learning so much, trying to be as perfect as possible,
Right.
but your product is just not there yet because you're learning it, and you only learn it by doing it.
Right.
The thing about tattooing is time.
Yeah.
Like, it's got, in the beginning, it was such highs and lows. Like, every other tattoo, it felt like I wanted to cry.
Right.
Like, you'd make a lot of progress and you'd be like, yeah, and then the next one you'd be like, I just did that. Yeah. I just did that.
Poor person.
Yeah. He loves me. So and that's just the brutal part about it. And you
Right.
have to remind yourself that everyone that you look up to was exactly the same position.
Yeah.
And then you can't compare how fast you learn to the next person next to you, because every hand is different. So
Just like in building muscle and losing weight, you can't compare yourself to the person next to you.
Yeah, it's very much a solo journey. Like the thing that was really pressed into me was like, you know, you can get instructed how to use the tool, but your hand is going to use it how it's going to use it, right? So it's a matter of you processing that information and transferring it.
Right.
And so I finished my 6 months at this shop, and I actually got an offer to go to a different shop, to a private shop over with the inquiry with someone that I had idolized for years.
The inquiry, are we talking Scott?
Yeah.
Scott and B?
Yeah.
I know Scott and B. They're
So,
very good friends of mine. B is an IFBB Pro women's physique competitor.
Yeah, I work with them.
Yeah, she's very good friends with me and Sammy, and then we just know Scott through her, obviously. They're fantastic people. What a small world.
Yeah, and that's
So you're at the inquiry.
Yeah, so that's one thing that like I will always start to preach about is like, you know, being next to, first off, I just admire Scott for his work and the fact that I was asked to co-over.
His tattoos are I don't have any tattoos, but his are super cool.
Yeah,
it's very
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So he does yours.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So
super badass.
Yes. And so just kind of being around that type of energy puts you on another level,
Yes.
you know what I mean? But so now I work over there and I was given
And they have that place on West 6. Yeah, that's a
6.
cool spot. I've actually been there.
Yeah. So I've been given the privilege of becoming now a tattoo artist title. So I'm not charging a lot, but I am working through and learning, but
Sure.
you know, producing my own custom work because people are also just requesting that. So
yeah, and so if
it's
somebody wants
great.
you to commission a piece for them to get done by another artist, they can reach out to you as well.
Yeah, I also still do that,
Yeah.
but you should just come get it from me.
You should just come get it from her.
Yeah,
So
because I do that now.
And if they're gonna reach out, is it social media is the best way to get a hold of you, or should they go on the Inquiry website? Or
I guess I do have an Inquiry email. There is 2 emails you can contact me by, and I'll just like give that.
Sure. Yeah, Ray will throw it in the description.
Okay,
as
cool.
always.
Yeah, and I can give those out, and also I do check my Instagram direct messages, but that's not the best way.
Oh,
yeah.
If you
IG
slide
right.
into them and it's about business, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
If you're about
Hey.
tattoo business, then like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm about it. But
Awesome, dude. That's super cool. Love tattooing. Just like Ray, I've always thought about getting one, but I think Ray's a little closer to get one than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely been close. I just don't know what I want.
we'll
Ray-
get you there.
Ray's gonna need a little bit of help.
Yeah,
So,
he's
and you also wrote a book.
Yeah, when I was like 19 years old. It was like a
Interesting.
head vomit book. Like it was one of those things that like I needed to just get some shit out.
And
And I
did you self-publish
wrote
it and all?
Yes.
Super cool.
Boy, did I ever.
Nice. Awesome. Well, you've done quite a bit in your life at such a young age. Now, we're going to move on to one of our favorite parts here, Ray. You ready to go into our rapid fire round? So our rapid fire round, Miss Ella, I'm just going to ask you a bunch of just really basic, really simple questions, but fun questions. And I just want you to spout off the answer right off the top of your head as soon as you can. Okay, you ready?
Okay, yeah.
All right, let's go. Favorite color?
Black.
Favorite song currently on your playlist?
Potential.
Who's that by?
Gucci Mane.
Oh, she got potential. Man, she got potential. I know that song. All right. Favorite car? Gucci. Brr. Favorite. Favorite car?
Truck.
Hi. Okay, I like it. Favorite movie?
Oh, God. It?
Okay. All right. Favorite book? Can't be your own book.
No.
She's like, yeah, I like my book. No.
Hands in the Sink.
Okay.
I just recently read it. I can't remember who wrote it, but it's
Okay.
about a woman
Hands in the sink.
Yeah, she's a really good swimmer, and then she loses her feeling in her legs and can't swim, and then she starts putting her hands in water and envisions it swimming, and then she gets her feet back. It's a true story.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. Favorite item in your gym bag?
My little like hip opener, like the little band. For
The
your
band,
hands.
the knee band. I got
The
one of
knee
those. I got
band.
one of those too. Favorite
Don't even
item.
know what to call it.
Favorite item in your ruck bag.
Ooh, my cami lights. Why not? Or my sweetest
What are those?
fish.
What are those? Sweet.
Cami lights is just a snap in the
A snap light.
Yeah.
The sweetest fish are for snacking.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Favorite tattoo that you have.
I actually really love my belly's tattoo the
Okay.
most, the buffalo.
Okay. Favorite tattoo you've done on somebody.
I really like the sleeve that I'm doing on this girl. It's got like a crazy little tiger and a bunch of mandalas, and then now it's getting a sloth that's hanging down and some like little more foliage
Okay.
and like dot work, and it'll just be all like
It's pretty
mandalas
big?
and jungle. Yeah, she'll let me sleeve out her whole leg, so it'll be all kind of like black work jungle theme with mandalas and like
Very
some
cool.
geometric
Dang.
work. So that's becoming
Favorite
more fun.
place you got to travel during all of your competing and everything.
I really liked Mexico City because
Yeah.
we went to, I forget what those temples are called out
The
there.
ruins or whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we got to go on to them.
I've only seen it in pictures.
Yeah, and I think you can't.
It looks really cool.
Right, and I think you can't walk on them now. And back now, and
Oh,
back
really?
then I was able
Ah,
to
you
walk
were able to
on
go
them,
there.
and it was really, really, really cool because it's dated like 1,000
Seeing
years
something
before
that
BC.
old.
Yeah. That was really probably one of my favorites, just
That's
because
super cool.
It was a lot of culture.
Favorite exercise?
I love anything to involve legs. Honestly, I like to sled pull things, kind of like that, or dragging, running up hills.
Okay. And who's your favorite horse?
My favorite horse
Yeah.
that I've had.
Yeah. What's his name?
Chance.
Chance. Chance was the horse. Chance was the guy.
Chance.
And that's all we got for the rapid fire round. Thank you, Miss Ella, for participating. We really always do have fun here in the Six Pack Lab. As always, first, I want to thank you so much for coming in and first sharing your story. I was interested to come here and because I'm not sure if a lot of our customers or if our viewers know who you are, but I'm glad that they do now. And and I think that your story is really impressive. And I do thank you for coming in and sharing all that information with us. And I think that's just, like I said, it's good. Just ask for help.
Yeah. It doesn't. It says more strength than you realize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now, where do you see yourself in the next few? What's next for Ella?
Oh man.
Next couple years.
I'm gonna start really just working my little booty off in the tattoo world. I want to
Okay.
get to a point where I feel very comfortable, because you could eventually find me living somewhere in the wild where you come get a tattoo from me, and it's just this amazing experience.
That sounds cool.
That's what I see. I can't exactly tell you, but
Okay.
I know it'll happen.
That's
and
the
I know-
vision.
I
I'm not
know-
going to doubt you.
and I really want to
Definitely
do
not.
more. I definitely want to do more things that involve community stuff. So I want to help more people with eating disorder. So I see myself
I
doing
like
a
it.
lot more with the income that I get with my tattooing. I see myself putting that somehow back towards helping people that are in need
That's
with mental
fantastic.
health. Yeah.
That's really awesome, Ella.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. All right, guys. So we had a really fantastic episode here today. We went over an article talking about keto for kids. Probably don't want to do it. We talked a little bit about gym fuckery, but this time the gym fuckery was outside, and it was electrocution style.
Yeah.
So Ella's advice to do that is maybe keep a little bit more of an open hand stance. If you're gonna knock them out of the way, don't cover your face.
Yeah, keep the vision.
Keep the vision. You need the vision.
Yeah.
We also went over our our Throwback Thursday here with Mr. Steve out of Texas. Fantastic job, brother. And then we talked with Ella. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Ray, I appreciate you, my brother.
Yeah,
This
Hey,
has
Ray.
thank you.
episode number 5 of the Six Pack Lab. It's your boy, Coach Jonny Catanzano here. We'll see you next time.
Yay.
That was so good.